The night sky over Russia's Far East lit up without warning. A freight train on the Trans-Siberian Railway was rolling through the forests near Sosnovka in the Khabarovsk Krai region when a sudden blast ripped through the tracks. Several train cars toppled off the line, metal twisted, cargo scattered, and for a moment, one of the most important railway arteries in Russia simply stopped moving. This wasn't a missile fired from Ukraine. It wasn't a long-range drone. It was something much closer and operationally more damaging for Moscow. A sabotage team working with Ukraine's intelligence services, hitting Russia from deep inside its own territory. But to understand how Ukraine reached a point where it can derail trains thousands of kilometers inside Russia, the story needs to rewind. This explosion near Sosnovka was not an isolated event. It was the latest move in a carefully built campaign that has been targeting Russia's railways, supply hubs, and logistical lifelines for weeks. The pattern began long before November 14th. On October 21st, an explosion hit a key railway link in Russia's Leningrad region. A freight train, reportedly carrying military cargo, burst into flames. Tracks were mangled, rail services were halted, and Russia tried to dismiss the incident as a technical disruption. But it was a clear early sign that Ukrainian sabotage teams were operating far from the front line and deep within Russian-controlled territory. In the weeks that followed, sabotage groups targeted locomotives, fuel depots, and rail control systems across Russia and the occupied territories. Most of these attacks occurred away from active front lines. All of them inflicted delays, uncertainty, and unexpected costs on Russia's war machine, and all set the stage for what happened next. On November 14th, United 24 Media reported that a powerful explosion had shaken a section of the Trans-Siberian Railway near Sosnovka in Khabarovsk Krai. This region is over 4,000 miles away from Ukraine, far beyond the range of any Ukrainian missile or drone. So something else had to be behind it. A day later, Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, known as HUWAR, explained exactly what had happened. On November 13th, an explosion occurred near the populated town of Sosnovka, into the Khabarovsk territory of the Russian Federation, blocking the movement of goods along the Trans-Siberian Railway, a key railway artery of the aggressor state of the Russian Federation, which is used to supply weapons and ammunition, in particular those obtained from the territory of the DPRK. Her then added a sentence that cut straight to the heart of Russia's embarrassment. The Kremlin's special services once again demonstrate their inability to ensure effective control over even the most critical infrastructure facilities for the occupiers. Ukraine accompanied this statement with a short video showing the preparation for the sabotage. It showed operatives moving quietly along the tracks, documenting the terrain, and placing charges on the rails. The message was unmistakable. Ukraine has operatives on the ground deep inside Russia, and they know where to strike. And here ended its announcement with a warning that was both a promise and a threat. The work to dismantle the enemy's logistical capabilities continues. That was not an exaggeration. 2 days later, on November 16th, the Kyiv Independent reported that the pro-Ukrainian partisan group Atesh had struck again, this time in the Melitopol district of occupied Zaporizhzhia. Atesh operatives set fire to a relay cabinet used to control a railway line. A burned relay cabinet can halt trains. In this case, it stopped several of the military trains that Russia relies on to move troops and equipment toward the southern front. In just 48 hours, Ukrainian intelligence officers and partisan groups had hit 2 different railways separated by thousands of kilometers, one in the Russian Far East, the other in occupied southern Ukraine. But both attacks served the same purpose: slowing, interrupting, and complicating Russia's logistics. To understand why this matters, it's necessary to grasp what Ukraine was hitting. The Trans-Siberian Railway is not an ordinary rail line. Stretching 9,288 kilometers, or 5,771 miles, it is the single largest railway route in the world. It links Russia's Far East and Siberia to its European regions. Without this line, a significant portion of Russia's logistical capacity collapses. In 2013, the Moscow Times wrote that the Trans-Siberian Railway was capable of carrying 120 million tons of freight annually. metals, oil, chemicals, minerals, and increasingly, since the war began, weapons. In that same year, Vladimir Putin opened the country's National Welfare Fund to pour billions of dollars into modernizing the line. He described it as the main transportation artery between Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, crucial for the economic development of Siberia and Russia's Far East. A 2020 report by researchers Maria Kaziva and Ekaterina Bondarchuk said Russia expected to raise the line's capacity to over 200 million tons per year by 2025. Whether Moscow reached that target is unclear, but the intent was obvious. The Trans-Siberian Railway is supposed to be the backbone of Russia's long-distance logistics. That is why Ukraine targeted it. Even temporarily delaying cargo trains weakens Russia's ability to move crucial supplies, and some of those supplies are more important than others. The reason He emphasized the phrase weapons and ammunition obtained from the territory of the DPRK is that North Korea has become one of Russia's most important suppliers in this war. In April 2025, The Guardian revealed that a missile made in North Korea had killed 12 people in Kyiv. President Volodymyr Zelensky commented, "According to preliminary information, the Russians used a ballistic missile manufactured in North Korea." By that point, North Korea had already shipped Russia dozens to over 100 short-range ballistic missiles, and that was only the start. Reuters and the Open Source Center tracked 64 shipments from North Korea to Russia over 20 months. Those shipments amounted to about 16,000 containers, believed to be carrying artillery shells. Ukrainian estimates say that North Korea supplies a significant share of all artillery shells fired by Russia in Ukraine. Entire Russian artillery units are reportedly reliant on North Korean ammunition. Former UN sanctions expert Hugh Griffiths summarized the situation bluntly. Without Chairman Kim Jong-un's support, President Vladimir Putin wouldn't really be able to prosecute his war in Ukraine. This is where the sabotage of Russia's railways becomes strategically important. If the Trans-Siberian Railway is being used to move North Korean shells and missiles from the Far East to the European part of Russia, then derailing even one train creates a bottleneck in a supply chain Moscow cannot afford to slow down. Ukraine's intelligence services know this. They also know something else. North Korea's ability to keep supplying shells is weakening. Vadim Skibitsky, deputy chief of Ukrainian Defense Intelligence, said North Korea has supplied millions of shells since 2023, and several reports suggest shipments declined notably in late 2025. There is a substantial value gap between deliveries and payments. One reason is simple. North Korea is running out of usable Soviet-caliber shells. Ukrainian defense officials report that around half the shells North Korea sends are faulty. Political analyst Olena Kryzhanivska wrote that around 50% of shells shipped to Russia from North Korea are faulty. Russia has to spend additional resources refurbishing many of them before they can be used. The economic imbalance is also extreme. According to the Defense Post, Russia has received around $9.8 billion of arms from North Korea, but has only paid $1.2 billion. That might have been acceptable for North Korea at first, but as its supply dwindles, each shell becomes more valuable. Meanwhile, Russia is trying to create new routes to receive North Korean weapons. United 24 Media reported that on October 29th, Russia began building a new road bridge over the Tumen River to expand overland capacity. It is expected to handle 300 vehicles per day, potentially up to 800. Most of those will be cargo vehicles delivering military supplies. From Moscow's viewpoint, this is an attempt to bypass vulnerabilities in the rail system. But it also shows how desperate Russia has become for North Korean ammunition. And that brings everything back to Ukraine's sabotage campaign. The attack near Sosnovka and the fire in Melitopol show that Ukraine is not merely destroying targets at the front. It is striking at the arteries that feed Russia's entire war effort. Each attack delays shipments, creates uncertainty, forces Russia to divert resources to security, and increases the cost and difficulty of supplying the front with North Korean weapons. Ukraine's intelligence service said it clearly and confidently. The work to dismantle the enemy's logistical capabilities continues. The only question now is how far they intend to take that promise, and how long Russia can keep its war going if the supply lines from North Korea become slower, riskier, and increasingly unreliable.